So I thought we'd start off with some Voigtkamp personality questions. And so describe in single words only the good things that come to mind about your mother. No, you don't have to answer that because we know how all that ended. Anyway, I thought...
I can answer that.
Yeah, go on.
The answer is unique because my mother was formidable and brought up 3 kids. One was Tony Scott, Top Gun Beverly Hills Cop. My elder brother was a captain doing the South China Seas into Communist China, and me. And she lived to 98. Her cure for anything wrong was get over it, you'll be fine. And the day that she passed away, I was holding her hand, and her final words were, "This is ridiculous," smiled at me and passed away. I think that's worth it.
Brilliant. She was a formidable woman, for sure. There are lots of stories. Well, I think what would be interesting, and I know you've been asked these questions a lot in the past, but I mean, there's a photograph taken by Sir Don McCullum of the West Hartlepool steelworks. I think you've got that photograph. Yeah. Mm. I mean, it's an incredible sort of, bleak picture, but it's something that I think you grew up, the background, and maybe explain and describe a little bit about what that is.
Well, if you, I got 1 GCE, which is not very good, right? I was at the secondary modern school, having followed my father through Germany, Army of Occupation, in 1947, 1952. So being an army brat, I went to 10 schools. In those days, parents would say, "You'll catch up." Well, of course you don't, because there were 10 schools in those days, and I was way behind. So when I got through to GCE, I failed miserably, but I had an A+ in art. And the one man who saved my life was my art master, Mr. Cleland, and I never caught up with him afterwards. He said to me, "What are you going to do when you come back in September?" "Why?" I said, "Because maybe get a few more GCEs, and then what?" He said, "I'm going to call 2 art schools on Monday, and you're going to go to one of them." So I went to Middlesbrough and saw Middlesbrough. Anyone been to Middlesbrough? Anyone been to West Hartlepool? And I ended up in Hartlepool for 4 years. But in Hartlepool was in heavy industrial area, 25% unemployment. I enjoyed every minute of it. I learned more at West Hartlepool Art College than I did at the Royal College of Art. Yeah. Because from Hartlepool, I got in everywhere. So I got in the Royal, the Academy, etc. And the Royal was then a different trajectory.
How, and just following on from that, you obviously your father, my grandfather, was a brilliant watercolorist, and he encouraged you to kind of go down that art route, which was unusual for the time, I think.
Yeah, war years and that era, there was no TV, thank God. People played instruments, conversed, painted, and socialized. And there was no television. There was the posh sound radio. I remember my uncle Elder in North Shield did really good oils, and I could never track one down. And you listen to BBC fourth
one, I guess.
The one with the classical music. With his pipe, and he'd paint. That was a picture of the years in like 1947, right? I think for me, that was it. I mean, that's it. Yeah.
And I mean, what's interesting? Did you ever? There were lots of people from, great talents coming out of the Northeast at that time. But notably, there was, I think, Wayne Sleep, who you ended up working with, the choreographer back in the day when you were doing commercials. Yeah. He lived in West Hartlepool. I wonder if you ever come across him. But even more, Guy Pearce, not Guy Pearce. Guy Pearce. He lived there as well for a time, but he's a bit younger. But he lived up there as well. You ended up working with.
Anyone been to Hartlepool? Did you live there? Yeah, you live there? Stockton-on-Tees. Hey. I lived in Stockton-on-Tees for 13 years. Didn't love it, but it's all right.
And now you're here.
Didn't love it.
In that case, let's keep going down this path. But have you ever heard of the
Tom
legend?
Hardy lives in Scotland.
Yeah.
His wife. Sorry.
Have you ever heard of the legend of the Hartlepool monkey? The Hartlepool monkey?
Who hung the monkey?
There you go.
If you're going to get into a fight in Hartlepool, and you knock everything down, and the only thing left standing was all the pubs. So when you see a boy on a bicycle, that's the landscape I started in. And there's one building standing, it's a pub. Now you can go in any door, and if you really wanted trouble, you could, who hung the monkey? And you'd be put to the floor instantly or defend yourself. Because in Napoleonic times, the French frigate was washed ashore, a wreck, and there was one survivor, and it was this little creature, which is a chimpanzee in Napoleon hat and uniform. They thought he was a Frenchman, so they hung him.
They thought he was a spy. Never go up there.
No comment on the French.
So let's get into your first memories of cinema, because one of your uncle, I think, Dixon Scott, had a chain of cinemas up there, and I wonder if that had a sort of influence on it.
No, I never met Dixon Scott, but later I was told by my mother, Dixon Scott was a bit of a shaker and a mover in Newcastle, and spotted his friend was either Laurel or of Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah.
And I remember having a conversation with him saying, "Do anyone know who Laurel and Hardy was?" Yeah. And I can't remember if it was the thin one or the fat one, but he said, "I'm getting out of here. I'm going to go to this place called Hollywood and start again." And so that's how far back it went and stretched. And Dixon started to purpose build cinemas in Newcastle.
Yeah.
Now, I never met him, so
okay.
as far as I know.
I didn't know that. So when did the penny drop as a film, as a vocation, and the realization that you might actually could get into it, or did that come much later?
No, I think it comes with me being taken to the American PX in 1947. I'd be 10 years old with my dad, and and the American PX is really like in the American zone. So it's actually fundamentally the supermarket, where there's a soda fountain and there's a cinema. And to keep the troops happy, apart from Coca-Cola and a soda fountain, they would run Hollywood movies on a Friday night. So I went and saw every Hollywood movie. And I remember distinctly Walter Mitty, Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
Secret Life of Walter Mitty, yeah.
Yeah, and I saw the John Wayne, the Great Western, the Searchers, etc. So that it sank in there.
And The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Sorry?
51. There was The Day the Earth Stood Still you mentioned.
Yeah, but that was by
Later.
the time. Now I was in Hartlepool.
Okay.
And in Hartlepool, at the local cinema, I got a job of painting huge hoarding posters for the lobby, in exchange for which I get free seats for the year.
Yeah.
So I'd be in the cinema every night.
Brilliant. So then, after West Hartlepool School of Art, College of Art, you are somehow drawn to London. You end up at the Royal College of Art, and which is a far cry from the northeast. So what was the initial impression? You mentioned frothy coffee, cappuccino, has been a real eye-opener back then. But what was, landing in London at that time was...
Yeah, because, the Exhibition Road, which is where the Royal College is, on the bottom of Exhibition Road, there was a cafe called Hades. Anybody remember the Hades in Exhibition Road? If you're old enough, okay. I think it was Michael Chow.
Okay.
And maybe Michael Chow's first shop. And I used to go in there, and there was this magic called cappuccino and spaghetti bolognese, and I hadn't tasted anything like that. So I was in there every night, spending my meager pittance, my allowance. So London, to me, at that moment, was magic, and quite different from Hartlepool. So.
Was it, culture, there was obviously post-war years and things like that, but, a world rebuilding itself.
No, I just remember having a good time at the Royal College. I never went to a museum or anything. I just had a great time raving. I mean, rave for 3 years.
Come on. Like music and the bands and the culture of the time, I suppose,
The band at the Royal College was run by a guy called Cephas Howard, and they actually achieved a #1. I'm not going to sing it for you, but it's something like, "Oh, you're driving me crazy. What should I do?" It became a #1.
Amazing.
And And they used to play in the Union, and the Union, of course, had a bar, and the bar was filled every night with nowhere else to go. Because when you're a student on a grant, I was living on about £3.5 a week. I had a basement room in Longridge Road in Earl's Court. So none of this comes easy, dude, right? So the road is pretty tough. It's going into a book right now. Quite funny. Most of it is pretty funny.
And you know, you're at the Royal College of Art, and your contemporaries at the time were...
Yeah, at the college, on the railings, drizzling, we were signing in. The guy standing next to me said, "What's your name?" I said, "My name's Ridley. My name's David." It's David Hockney. So I met David Hockney on the railings in the drizzle, and I never got to know him very well, except the only reason we really connect was he's exactly the same birthday and year as myself. So I think we both celebrated our 40th birthday in LA.
Brilliant.
But Hockney's still going strong, and I'm not sure strong, but he insists on smoking.
He's still smoking, just
He
sold a
said,
bunch
"It's
of
my
paintings."
body, I'll fucking smoke if I want."
Yeah.
That's it.
Apologies. And so there's a little bit of an interim period. So what happens? You you find employment at the BBC, and there's as an art director and things like that. Yeah.
No, what happens, I got a first-class honours from the Royal College with David, and that year I was given a grant like a Fulbright. And I'll get croaky in a minute, sorry. I was given a grant, so I wanted to do advertising. I was firmly into advertising, and I kind of liked the idea possibly of being a fashion photographer, because I discovered I had a really good eye, and I bought a second-hand camera at the Royal College, this Exacta Varex.
The Russian camera.
Yes,
Yeah.
no, German.
German, yeah.
And my show at the Royal College is your exhibition. It evolved into serious black and white glossies, where I had the Observer come and do an interview only on the pictures. And so my target at that moment, because my show got me a very good pass, I went to New York with a view to meeting all the great American photographers, see if I could get a job. So my first thing, I realized the grant wasn't that large, so I had to stay in the YMCA on 7th Avenue and 34th Street. That is not a great place to be. And it's $3 a night for an iron bed.
How long were you there in New York?
9 months. But I was saving money for drinking and going out at night, see. So, and my first day, I had a part of quarters in the lobby of the YMCA, and I tapped it. Anybody know who Bert Stern was?
Yeah.
Anybody? Well, Bert Stern was the great photographer of the time who had actually just taken all those pictures of Marilyn Monroe, who had nixed them, crossed them all out. And I wanted to go to him first. So I went in. This thing I learned about the United States, which has changed a lot. I said, "Could I speak to Mr. Stern, please?" Boom. "Hello, Bert Stern here." I couldn't believe it. Oh, and I blurted for a minute and I said, "Stop." He said, "What are you doing for lunch?" So I went and met Bert Stern for lunch. He leafed through the pictures. Said, "Wow." He said, "You know what? I'll give you a job if you come back here in a month. I've got some Scandinavians here right now. I'll take you on." And then we had a hamburger, and he showed me all the shots that Marilyn Monroe had crossed out that she didn't want. And they were shot that day before.
Amazing.
So amazing when all the great photographers there. And then, but also by accident, now I'm there for design. And I don't tell you, but I do not want to be a designer. So I now start looking for film. And there's a great company called Documentarian. Any documentarians in this room? What do you do? Okay, so Don Pennebaker and Richard Leacock are the two grandfathers of the best of documentaries. They were on off-Broadway, and I thought I would like to see if they can give me a job. So standing outside, and you don't learn this at college, I must have been an animal, actually, because I'm standing on the sidewalk with my portfolio, and this greasy spoon to my left, and the yellow cab on the second morning, me waiting. Two guys got out, and one called the other one Don, another called Rick, and said, "This is it." So they squeezed past me. I went down the corridor with my giant portfolio, elevator's this big. I said, do you mind if I come in? They said, if you must. I come in with them. By the time I get to the third floor, I have a job. You don't get shit if you don't go for it, right? So I had a job of being in, I'm a first-class honors from Royal College of Art, and I'm buying editors, hamburgers, cheesecake, and coffee for 9 months. That's what I do.
Fantastic.
But anything to be near film.
Great.
And so I did that for 9 months, and that was it.
Yeah.
And BBC had a job waiting for me. They said, you better come back now, as you don't have the job. I went and worked as designer for BBC.
Yeah, and at the BBC you were designing sets,
Big sets.
Yeah.
Big sets, good directors.
shows. Which shows were you doing?
Well, the director that I liked a lot was two guys, there's Alan Bridges.
Yeah.
I did a big show called Dial M for Murder, where I experienced 6 cameras for the first time and watched how Bridges would work with the 6 cameras. And I was going to do the Master Builder with Olivier.
Yeah.
I got jumped. I was elevated immediately. And I think one day I was asked to attend the head of design. I said, I need to talk to you. And I thought, I discovered, he said, you scare the shit out of directors. I said, why? He said, well, you asked them why they didn't use your set properly. I said, well, I designed a set the size of this table, and he shoots it down the bloody corner. So I said, Alan, why don't you do a wide shot first? He said, you mind your own bloody business. So I thought I was going to get fired. He said, what we're going to do is going to give you a production course at the BBC. So I learned to be a director at the BBC. That's where I began.
And which involved live.
I did
TV
live television, where you have to learn how to use 6 cameras.
We'll come back to that because that forms part of a later question.
Is this boring? Is this interesting?
Are we going in the right direction? Good. We'll get to some Q&As later, so you better start thinking about what questions you want to ask.
Hang on, what do you lot do? Do any of you do film?
Oh.
Oh, okay, fine. We'll ask you a question in a minute. Right, go on.
So there is this transition from kind of the BBC to commercial advertising. And what was the kind of motivating?
Money. I was being paid for doing a full job, full responsibility of a director at BBC, after tax, 75 quid a week. So one day I was in the elevator, and there was this very posh, beautiful woman who was a great designer called Marilyn Taylor, I remember. And she said, Ridley, if I'm ever not able to cover, would you cover this commercial director for me called Keith Hewitt? And Keith was the top of the game in British advertising, and rediffusion, independent television had already begun. And so I couldn't get in. I didn't even think about getting in.
What's rediffusion?
Well, independent TV.
Okay.
Rediffusion, ITVs. The following day, she was not well. And I then had to go and see Keith Hewitt. Keith Hewitt said, very noisy man, said, right, I got kitchen to do by tonight. Can you do it for me by tomorrow morning? These are the builders. So, and I'm full-time BBC. So I'm now working for the other side, which is illegal. And in those days, there's no cell phone to say where you are and where you're going to be. So there's only a lot of dodgy phone booths between Chelsea and White City. But what I did have is my magic bullet was a little white Mini Minor. And so I had a bag of change, and I knew every phone booth that worked and didn't work, between often where I should have been and I wasn't. Say, where the fuck are you? I said, I'm downstairs, I'll be within 10 minutes. I'm in Chelsea. So I'm a double life. But this went on for a couple of years, and from BBC I'm earning, 1,500 quid a year.
No
On
longer
the
a
side,
mini.
I'm making 17,000, so I knew there was something seriously wrong. And so they wondered why I turned up in an E-type in the BBC. How'd you get that? I said, my father left me some money. And after that brief period, I realized I had to become into TV advertising.
And so in 1968, you opened up RSA Films in Soho.
Was it 68, 61?
Yeah, it was 68, yeah.
Well, I was a fast entry. I was really good at it. And because and because of advertising, and I think my eye as a photographer, I was operating an operating camera, as it were, director.
Yeah.
So I mean, the efficiency, you're going to boil it down to making a film. The most efficient couple on any floor is, and I'm not going to say the director, because the director usually goes to the trailer because he's afraid. I would say is the first AD and the operator.
Okay.
And they build the movie. If you know what you're doing as a director, you are there with them. And if you can operate, you are there operating. So I was always operating.
And, yeah.
And that was very efficient.
And you literally did thousands. I know you did thousands because I've catalogued them personally, but over the years, and you one of them I found out was you made in 1969 for Love Ice Cream, which featured a young man called David Bowie.
Yeah, Crazy Joe Coleman.
Yeah,
David Bowie.
Quite something. Anyway, so you invited your brother Tony Scott to join you a few years after opening.
Well,
that.
Tony's 6 years younger, so he was finishing the Royal College.
Yeah.
And his wife wanted him to do documentary. And I said, if Tony does documentary, you see that bike he came in on, he's going to be riding that when he's 50. I said, he wants a Ferrari, he's coming with me. And he got a Ferrari.
So, and your older brother Frank was now a merchant seaman, a captain in the South Asian Sea or somewhere, Singapore.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was just going to ask you, what was the impact on your home, your parents, your mother and father, in terms of you, Frank, and Tony all leaving home more or less around the same time?
I think that happens, of course, all the time. And suddenly, what was nice was when a couple have 3 kids, the woman tends to divide her time and pay attention to the children. But as each of us left, as I actually saw my parents rediscover each other. So my dad's retirement was actually a good one. It was a happy one.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so advertising, the power of advertising. We're going to just look at that because it forms such a large part of your initial career. And, in some ways, advertising is the grease of the world economy. So how vital do you think advertising is to society, and how vital was it then, and how vital is it now? And how has it changed since these the powering days with your contemporaries of Adrian Lyne and Parker?
The evolution from sound radio, where I come from, pre-war days through war years, sound radio. I think I even remember Churchill saying we were at war. To then Stockton-on-Tees, and we were the first ones to have the TV set on the street. I'd come back every day, and at the head of the street, I'd say, "We got an aerial." So I rocketed home. We watched the very first black and white TV version, and from there, the quantum leap from where we went with the beginning of what we didn't know would be called digital work, to then the advent of independent television, giving huge competition to BBC, pushed an industry called advertising. And I was at the right moment, the right age to catch the wave. I literally tapped the source of advertising with Alan Parker. There's only really 3 were my competitors. There's Parker and there was Adrian Lyne. No one else really figured in that. They were always quite good, and then 1 or 2 maybe in this room going, "Fuck you," but actually, it's true. So I knew exactly who I was, and Parker and Adrian and I were 3 animals, and we literally, I think, changed the face and look of the advertising business, which I think, without question, it bled into the editorial and how films are edited, and therefore, from that moment on, you're now having that is then influences the look of TV of big films. Right? My real at that time, I should have had a feature film offered to me many times because my role was formidably, really sophisticated on any level of feature film. Even now, you can look at it now, and yet we couldn't get in. And because Hollywood were resistant to, if you can only do 30 seconds, you don't talk to actors, etc., etc. But yet, a feature film director couldn't do a shortened version of a condensed version of storytelling, like 30 seconds. But a 30-second man who has an opportunity to go feature is more logical.
But also, I think you were developing a new kind of language, a new vernacular. So the visual language was coming alive in advertising. And so you were doing things like, I mean, in a few years, well, I think 1970, from 1972, you did Chanel.
And I had a lot of big campaigns like Chanel.
Which were beautiful images,
We should mention David Putnam.
Well,
Go on.
Go on. Mention David Putnam.
Parker, there's like a clique. That I'm from the north. I was kept out of the clique. I was never in the clique. And I was actively not. They were so competitive, they tried to stop me evolving. Seriously. And so there's Putnam was buddies with Parker and with Line. And when I learned that Alan Parker was going to do his first film called Bugsy Malone, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't sleep for a month.
Furious. You're absolutely furious.
I said, how much? $1 million, I nearly died. I couldn't bear it. And then Adrian did Fox. I mean, God, it's the end of the world, and I'm 38. What am I going to do?
Right.
And I didn't know David. But I had enough money. I was on my second Rolls Royce by now, so that's how well I went. So I chose a script, chose a writer, paid the writer, and got dead lucky because the writer was a beautiful writer, Jerry Vaughan Hughes, who wrote the thing called The Duelist for me. From that, I did the rounds. No one wanted it. And so eventually I called up David Putnam saying, listen, I need your help. From that, David helped me. He put me in touch with Paramount, and that's where I began.
Okay. Let's go back, though, before we jump in there, and I know we all want to, but there's this TV commercial made in 1973 for a well-known bread brand that's set on a steep hill called in Shaftesbury. And it's just really interesting if you ever have an opportunity to look at that commercial and break it down into the shots. It's only 4 shots. Hovis, fantastic. And it's the simplicity of the language of how you've put that together is a real masterclass in storytelling. And I think, would it be true to say that that has carried through all of your that kind of attention to storytelling has carried through?
Yeah. I mean, you know, the job of a director is tricky, depending on who you are, where you're coming from, how confident you are, how sure you are. If you're not sure, they'll smell it in a heartbeat. Any directors in the room? They're going to smell it in a heartbeat. You better be confident at all times. So, and so I had learned this doing advertising. So by the time I go into a feature film, I'm operating to begin with. I own the script, secondly. And then I thought getting a prize at Cannes on my first film was pretty good. And from Cannes, they didn't really know what to do with it, so they made 7 prints in the United States. I mean, how stupid can you be, right? But you know, in those days, to be fair to them, it was such a historic, arty piece, they didn't know what to do with it. But what was interesting, there's a guy called Sandy Lieberson, who was the head of MCA in London, had seen the film in Cannes and called him Alan Ladd Jr., saying, listen, I know you're looking for a guy to direct Alien. This is your man. That's how it happened. So I suddenly got offered Alien. And so I jumped all over that like a heartbeat.
Brilliant.
I was the 6th choice. They asked Robert Altman to do Alien. Bob must have gone, what? I don't know how to do this. Robert Altman? I love his movie, but he would go, what? No.
So so we're jumping ahead, but I know you want to go ahead. So The Duelist, that's 1977, and you cast Harvey Keitel, Keith Carradine, among other great actors. 2 Americans.
Edward Fox, Christina Raines. Yeah.
Do you think The Duelist is a kind of ghost story in reverse?
A what?
A ghost story.
Oh, wow. No, I don't see that.
At the end.
Yeah, go on, what happens?
Well, the Harvey Keitel character is
he's
fucked.
Napoleon.
Oh, I've done it now. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw an engraving of Napoleon standing surveying France. So I ended that on Harvey standing on the cliff, has no head for heights.
Yeah.
So, can you go near there? I said, no, fuck you. So I have a line on him, and I've got him standing surveying France.
Yeah.
And
But you've got Keith Carradine's character explaining that he has to disappear.
well, that was
He's
the beauty.
dead. He's more or less. Do you see?
Yes,
That's why
very-
it's a ghost story.
Very good. Luke's more of a writer than I am. But he said, right, here's the deal. You owe me your I own your life.
That's it.
So you will wait until I call on you to resume our exchange, and if I do, you will obey, and if I don't, you'll just have to wait. So in a way, we put him on this terrible hold, where he's standing there staring and loving this guy Napoleon Bonaparte, who's then in Centolino.
Yeah. It's a beautiful film. It's my favorite film.
Jerry Vaughan is a very underrated writer who lived in Cornwall. Very good.
Beautiful. Absolutely so. I was in it as well.
Yeah. Well, Jake and Luke were both in. They do dialogue scenes with Keith Carradine.
Yeah.
And you have the frog.
Yeah, I had the frog. But also the fight choreography, which was by the master swordsman William Hobbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're considered some of the most accurate depictions of dueling.
Yeah.
And they really are. And what's really extraordinary about them is how brutal and how violent the film actually is.
Well, we didn't use buttons. And so Keith said, listen, Harvey's dangerous. He said, Harvey doesn't know how to handle a sword. Keith theatrically knows how to handle a sword. He said, can we have buttons? I said, absolutely not. So even a blunt-ended rapier will go in you like that in a heartbeat. And so it was kind of edgy. I mean, I was hit with a saber twice. Yeah. But Harvey just going...
And you really enjoy, you enjoy fights and,
I love that. Put it on a
conflict
crash helmet and get dinged on that.
Because from Gladiator
and
Napoleon and Black Hawk Down, you have this sort of, obviously the opening scene of Gladiator, these beautiful, visceral kind of fights and battles and all of that. Certainly on Napoleon.
The Blood one, yeah. The Germans were pretty good. They're all from Scotland. Those guys from Germany, they're all from Scotland.
You once came face to face with a Luftwaffe fighter pilot. You did?
Yeah.
And what vital lessons and memories should we be at pains to retain?
We were living in South Shields, and I'd be, in 1947, war broke out, 39 to 45. So 39, I'd be in South Shields, 41, and had my little tin helmet and my army uniform, and I already had a Tommy gun. Can you believe it? And they're already manufactured, already making guns. So as kids, we'd play outside the house on the kind of funny small park where we'd all practice killing each other all Saturday and Sunday. It's amazing how the effect of war has on you. And one day we were playing there, and the Heinkels would come up, because we were living in a big steel and shipbuilding area. So the Heinkel bombers would come up high and then come back low, having offloaded their bombs. And they would always be accompanied by a Messerschmitt. And so I remember, and I don't know what happened, but I saw this big black belly of this Matt aircraft coming at us low across the park. And I just remember the shadow as it flickered, and people were standing staring up at this bomber. And it had, on its side, it had a cross, not the swastika. And either side of it was a Messerschmitt. And as the guy went over, his cowling was back, and he had blonde hair and a white scarf. I couldn't believe it. And he just did that as it went over about 200 feet. They went back down England at steeple level because they were just they were coming under the radar. Amazing. So what's interesting, that shadow on the park keyed in later to a big famous campaign I did for Chanel, where I based it all on Magritte paintings. Anyone knows who Magritte is? Magritte paintings and a shadow on landscape. And it came from that. So it's funny how your brain works. I was sitting there one afternoon, I went trying to think, what am I going to do for Chanel? And I just remembered the shadow in the park, and that's
Amazing. And how much does memory,
Everything.
how much do you draw?
Everything, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's called a memory shelf, really.
Yeah.
And I think once you pull, I'm doing a book now. I'm not writing it, thank God, but I'm working with a good a good writer he's persistent, and every time we come back to visit a section, there's always something new, different. As you pull something out, there's always something at the back of the drawer, and so these things go really deep into your past. And so it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
I don't do films. My films tend to be not that personal, except they're personal in the sense of how I do it and the art, and I call it art, that I employ to actually get it done that way. But I've never really. My most personal film probably is Blade Runner. And Duelist, not really. That was written beautifully in great elegance, and I carried it out.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned Blade Runner as being your most personal movie, because, I mean, there was a question I was toying with, which is, in all of your movies, but I suppose in Blade Runner itself, and as it relates to memory, what aspect of yourself appears in any of your movies, or does it? I mean, do you draw on it? Are you Roy Batty, for instance? Did you...
No, it's really in the universe that it will be set in. And I remember I didn't...
What part of your personality comes through, I suppose?
Yeah,
That's difficult.
your personality comes through it, and what I say, God's in the details,
Yeah,
always.
yeah.
And so I think if a lot of the details, my film are very, very, very detailed, more than most people's films. I think those are my details. That's part of me.
Brilliant.
So actually, the thing that I'm really good at is casting. And I discovered casting, meeting with actors, and is quite a different learning curve with having no had training whatsoever. And but eventually, I started to get a good nose for who can do what. But that only comes with watching everything. So I tend to watch everything that happens. And the good showcase is television, actually. And I tend to always have a bedtime story. I need to watch them before I go to bed. So I'm always watching up. And so I have a notebook. Somebody will go down. That's how I cast people. Yeah. If you cast well, chances are it means you've also got to make sure that the actor or actress is good and at what they do. Otherwise, I wouldn't cast them. And apart from looking right for the role, and I've never thought about this, but when you cast probably with a good actor, they're going to go home and really work it by themselves. And there's nothing an actor wants to hear more than when he comes in on the Monday morning of the first day, and you want to start talking about the story of life for his first take. He just wants you to say action. So any director did, just say action and see what happens. Let him be. Don't confuse him.
Speaking of actors, Michael Fassbender has sent me a question, which is about acting, oddly. What makes a great actor? Or is there an actor in history you wish you'd had the chance to work with?
Sorry?
Is there an actor in history you wish you'd had a chance to work with?
Olivier.
Olivier, yeah. Why is that?
Well, I heard a story about Olivier with Dustin Hoffman. I know Dustin. I should play tennis with Dustin. He's a good tennis player. And Dustin was doing Marathon Man.
Yeah.
And he had obsessed about...
Is it safe?
Marathon Man?
Yeah, marathon.
And he had a ticket in his wallet that he had to have. Nothing to do with the scene, just had to have the fucking ticket. And he said, I've lost the ticket. And Olivier said to him, my dear boy, why don't you try acting? His ticket was his talisman, so he could do the ticket and then say action, right?
Amazing.
Yeah. But that's deeply method. And I don't... I mean, every acting experience with me is a new slope.
Yeah. But you cast actors because they're good at what they do, ultimately.
I cast them because they're great at what they do.
Yeah.
And then inside that, we either start to get on, or we always get on, because I think they love the fact I'm two-take Charlie.
Yeah.
I work with eight cameras.
How do you think they feel about, because you are very quick.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, I guess probably the single complaint is, I haven't done my best take yet.
No, contrary to what people believe, an actor doesn't want to do 39 takes. He's come prepared. He wants you just to say action, please.
Right.
And they go, action, and say, is that it? He said, yeah. And I will let them make the first commitment. They'll do it, and I'll chat, then we'll go again or not. And if it's got 6 to 11 cameras on that take, I said, you just did it, you want to go again? Yeah. And Al Pacino said, you mean I don't get to go again? I said, only if you want to. He says, what do you think? He said, I think I got it. I said, I know.
You are quite rare in that your multi-camera setups.
But no one does it. It's bizarre.
That comes from your work in TV and stuff like that? Or,
well, no, I think...
Or is it just...
no, I mean, that was pedantic, because BBC, God bless them, run an incredibly incredible company, and would do, in those days, what was it, 12, 14 hours TV a day live. That's huge. And any play or any show would have a minimum of 6 cameras, all locked to a cable. So when you're in a big studio, TC, whatever it is, your camera 1 will have probably the most positions during the play. Camera 6 will have the least position, but somehow there's literally ducking under cables and things to get to a new position. There's chaos off the floor outside of the set. So, and if you're in the gallery and you're directing, you've got 6, 7 monitors. You've got 1 live, you've got 6 all on the move, finding the next position or changing lens. And so you don't watch that, you've got to watch only live. And so it is kind of scary. But I learned more I've discovered my eyes are really as good as it gets. Yeah. And so I can, because I'm an operator, I would line up a shot when I was only doing 1 camera at a time. And then found it was pedantic, because I'm shooting you right now, and got 2, I'm shooting you, I'm off camera helping you, you take 15 takes, and I'm going, why didn't you do it fucking better, quicker? So, because I'm dying, so when you turn, I'm exhausted. So I said, let's do 2 cameras. Cameron said, the lighting will be, no, it fucking won't. So I asked, you want me to light it for you? And then, no.
Apologies.
Anyway, that's so good.
But you've invented I guess
definitely
a method, a technique that requires a horse box. That you get
I have a horse box in. 8 cameras. I've got 8 monitors in there. I literally cut the scene as we go. Boom, boom, boom.
And oddly, that horse box has appeared in many movies because it gets painted with
trees or bricks, according to where we are.
Camouflage. So you do it deliberately, don't you? You put yourself in that.
Yeah, I know. I'm right in the middle of it, and I think the crews. I know this, that the actors adore speed. I thought it was the wrong way around 30 years ago. Not at all. They love to move fast, and they do not want to do many takes.
Yeah. And that's in terms of the prep and like rehearsals and things like that. How deep do you go into discussion?
Well, I've walked in because I'm pretty good. I can draw very, very good comic strips, like really a comic strip with includes close-ups, wide shots, locations I haven't found yet, but I'll imagine what they're going to be. So the storyboard on Napoleon is this thick. And so while I'm prepping it, wherever I'm on a phone call, I'm always drawing the next scene. And it means that I'm actually filming on paper in my head before I get there. Yeah. So I can walk in a room and say, okay, there it is. Come in here, sit there. You're going to do that. He's going to cross. And so put him in there. Let's do one walkthrough for the boys. Do not act. Do not act. Action. Boom, 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 boom. Right. How long for makeup? 40 minutes. Only in 40 minutes we shoot. Yeah. We're shooting before 9 o'clock. So when you do Napoleon in 38 days, you know you're fast.
Yeah. And so I guess there's so much to unpack there, but first of all, is you've done your storyboards, which is in a sense a pre-edit.
Yeah.
So in a sense, you pre-visualize what you're going to do.
You're pre-shooting.
Yeah. And let's talk about editors and editing. You know, for instance, I mentioned the duelists, but also the opening warfare and much of the combat in a lot of your movies and are fantastically put together. But you know, what is that relationship? Is it with editors? So you've worked with Terry Rawlings, Pietro Scalia, Claire Simpson, among others. And what is that relationship?
I mean, you can only do what I do with a very good editor. Because when I shoot, I leave them to it. I don't. I'll see the rushes on this following weekend because I've been sitting in my horse box. I've seen the rushes because they're digital. I've seen what I got, so I don't need to see it again. So now they then start putting it together, looking at my board. I go on a Saturday, check what they're doing, say that's okay, move on. So by the time we finish the movie, the one I just finished, shot in 34 days, Dog Star, I finished on a Friday. By the following Wednesday, I was looking at the director's cut. Yeah. Normally that would take, Scorsese, that'd take 9 months. Sorry, Mom, it's true. So, I mean, because he won't allow anyone to touch the material till he finishes. And I can't do that, I'd get bored.
It would be true to say you almost written the movie twice at that
yes,
point.
in a way. But the editor then, in a way, the cut is the final rewrite, you know. Yeah. And the mix is where the movie lands.
And have you ever been surprised by a reinvention or the alchemy of it?
No. The alchemy of a great editor is they'll do, I can tell it's like reading a good writer.
Yeah.
If I've got a good writer, I can tell in half a page if they're any good, purely by what they call the name of their characters. No one is called Roderick, right? So I think, oh, it's a boom. So writing is, again, another super art, because you can get something on paper before anything, you got magic. Because there you have your blueprint, your plans for the building, whatever you're doing, you better be on paper. That's the hardest single thing to do. Not shoot the film, get it on paper. And then the next thing is to trust an editor. And I go back a few, Pam Power, Terry Rawlings.
Yeah.
Terry
Rawlings did Blade Runner.
Well, Terry Rawlings, interestingly, was my music editor on The Duelist. And then I noticed he showed me the magic of the needle drop. We had a gramophone player here, and even on a Hollywood movie, he said, watch this. And he'd run it and start the music, bring the music in like a basic mix. And from that, I was doing Alien. I said to Terry, do you want to cut Alien? And he went, what? And so I gave...
Amazing.
And Terry did Blade Runner and Legend.
Yeah.
And then we fell out.
So let's talk. Let's take a bit of a dive into. We don't have to go there. But you're one of the few filmmakers who works on a physically epic scale. Films like Legend, Gladiator, Blade Runner, Exodus, Alien, Martian. They're all ambitious world building. Some of them with minimal to no CGI. And
there's no such thing in those days.
Yeah, technology has enabled the fulfillment of your breathtaking ideas. But which in your heart do you prefer? Do you prefer the analog in camera, or do you like the kind of post-production CGI?
It's all great. I love it.
Yeah. But Legend was kind of spectacular in its.
Legend had no visual effects at all.
Yeah.
We literally built the
everything.
forest,
Yeah.
and then and it's the Bond stage, which is 350 by 200. And the gantry is 57 feet.
And it burned down.
I had to build, we put in 25 tons of hogging.
Yeah.
A great production designer called Ashton Gordon, one of the best. And he makes hills and valleys in the Bond stage. Then he builds polystyrene trees like sequoias. And I make them full round because I'm going to be shooting from every which way. And whatever it is, it's always too small. So I'm standing there going, it's too fucking small. He goes, what? And then one day I thought, give me a piece of paper. I thought, the gantry is 57 feet high. So So I then said, how wide is the sheet of mirror on? 4 feet. Right, I want 4 feet, 57 feet high, on a frame, at times half the studio, hanging off the gantry. So we hung them, ran around, and by God, the forest went on forever. So just hung mirrors.
Yeah. And a young Tom Cruise comes on.
Tom Cruise was 21, and Billy Barty and Cork Hubbard and Mia Sara. That was great. And Tim Curry playing the devil was magic.
Super camp.
Absolutely magic.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. And just on that VFX thing, is it true to say that if you can see the VFX, there's a kind of failure? Like if it's too much.
Well, I think effects like painting. You got to know where to stop.
Yeah.
And I think, I go with this thing about the quantity of movies that are made today, literally globally, millions, not thousands. I think millions.
Yeah.
And most of it is shit. About 80%, 60%. 40% is the rest, and 25% of that 40 is not bad. The top 15 is 10% is pretty good. Top 5 are great. I'm not sure about the proportion of what I've just said, but it's always been that way.
Yeah.
So in the years, in the 40s, when there may have been 300 films a year made, the percentage would be the similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Because I think a lot of films today are saved and made more expensive by digital effects. Because what they haven't got is a great thing on paper first. Get it on paper, get it on paper, get it on paper.
So let's go to your crew, the importance of crews,
Yeah.
and in your, it's not made in isolation, it's a collaboration to a certain extent.
Well, I go, right, and they all come.
Brilliant. And what are the most important?
They're all important.
All important.
Everybody.
Right.
I mean, gradually you handpick. No, you don't handpick, but you make your list that you want to keep working with.
Yeah.
It's all about reliability and creativity and efficiency.
Okay. Now, you had a T-shirt once which had the words emblazoned on the front, which said, "Xenophobia sucks."
Yeah.
Let's dig into that.
Well, I was doing Blade Runner. The first time I was in Hollywood, making a movie, and being there, I was a stranger in a strange land, and because I'm English, but I'd done, Duelist and Alien, and you thought that would mean something, but I tended to be used to being the boss, and because I was the boss. I had 20 years running an advertising company where I was the boss. And so it gradually became slowing me down, and it became annoying. And then, so I had an observer journalist in my trailer one day. He said, what's the difference? I said, well, I said, unfortunately, I expressed it in a bad way. I said, in England, they tend to say, whenever you're ready, gov.
Yeah.
Some asshole, got that article, and on the top it said, whenever you're ready, gov, and they printed the unit of 400 person, printed 4 sheets, put it on the coffee tray.
Yeah.
So everyone's looking at this, and I have a revolution in my hand.
Yeah.
And so, as somebody said, it's gonna go badly. So that evening, I had a hat made with gov on it, and I had 300 T-shirts made, "Xenophobia sucks." And I walked on the set the next day with "Xenophobia sucks" on gov, and I had a coffee. Everybody said, "What the fuck is xenophobia?" And then gradually, I won by lunchtime.
And it was a great movie.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great movie, despite doing it was very hard because, and understandably, I think why the film wasn't successful either, because it was so different. It was such a new universe. I had to have it this way and that way, and had it in my head and on paper, and people hadn't experienced that before.
Yeah.
They hadn't seen this before, of what I'd call getting into the social realms of science fiction.
Yeah.
What is it like to live on the street? And I called it, and my investors said, I want to call it San Angeles. And they said, why San Angelo?
Think about it.
Duh, right? My favorite is duh. I said, well, when San Francisco sped so fast into LA, you got San Angeles, got it? San Francisco and San. So they didn't like that.
Yeah, incredible.
I was very unpopular.
But what's I thought
They hated me.
I
hated them. I love a bit of fight.
I always find it amazing when you watch that film. Is again,
Doesn't age.
Doesn't age, but also how theatrical the techniques that are in there, in terms of the sets and the models and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's incredible what you achieved there. And did those crews, did they understand what was happening?
Not really. Yeah. I don't think so, no. I think a few did. Larry Paul, as the production designer, really was there to do our bidding.
Yeah.
The guy who really designed it with me was a great industrial designer called Sid Mead. So Sid Mead and I put the sets together on the back lot.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't afford. I wanted to go to Hong Kong because I'd been shooting commercial in Hong Kong. Was blown away by Hong Kong in the low rise sky, not skyscraper with the washing, no tall buildings at all. And I'd done several commercials there where there were junks in the harbor. Yeah. It was unbelievable. Yeah. And I always remembered that making LA would be Chinese. The choice would be either Hispanic or Chinese or Hispanic.
Well, it was a mix of both ultimately, wasn't it? I mean, you really kind of coined the world of cyberpunk and that sort of dystopian thing.
Well, we did. We went the whole 9 yards.
The evolution of the vision, there wasn't a lot to lean into. I mean, I guess you had things like Metropolis, Alphaville, were two sorts of...
But I think that went into most of it was genetics.
Yeah.
The genetic side is major because I think Musk will maybe be the first one on Mars.
Yeah. May he stay here.
Stay on Martian. And Mars is, on a good day, it's only 70 degrees, but there's no air. So to function, on a bad day, it's minus 190. So, so you're going to be fundamentally living in beehives, and eventually underground. So if you're going to need a specialized army who put up with being on Mars for months, years.
Genetics.
So you better genetically evolve a team that is going to be up there, psychologically conditioned to be able to stay there, like a super astronaut.
And how did you arrive at that? Those kinds of things.
It made sense. That wasn't in the book. We evolved that.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that we took from the book.
But it's interesting because in Alien you had Ash, the character, who was an organic.
But all goes back to Stanley. Stanley Kubrick had the genius idea of HAL, where the computer, that we didn't even know what that was then, actually was the mission was more important than the crew. People don't hand enough credence to 2001. It was a major genius act. And then followed that was Ash, who was a company man. And if you're going to have a company man, you may as well have him looking like a human being. So no one knows he's a company man, right? So then you have Roy Batty, who actually becomes the combatant who refuses to die, and actually will come back and organize a riot and a revolution on Mars to return. And it was limited to like 6 or 8.
Yeah. Let's talk about monsters. Because Alien obviously introduces the world to an absolute terrifying creature.
Yeah.
And,
I got lucky. Really, because...
I was going to ask, when you set eyes on H.R. Giger's work...
Yeah, I saw there's a book called Necronomicon, showed to me by Dan O'Bannon. O'Bannon had written the script with his buddy.
Yeah.
And I have to say the team I was going to make it with were not nice to Dan and Ronnie Shusett. And it was starting to try and take that back as being the authors, and I didn't like that. So we went to the union, and the union, we won. So I was really unpopular. But I hated the fact that, didn't like that.
Yeah.
And Ronnie and Dan said to me, you know what? I said, the thing that really bothers me, the script is great. It's written like a comic strip. But if I haven't got a monster, I ain't got a movie. Yeah. I don't care who the cast is. Without this, and And Dan said, okay, I'm not going to direct the movie. I won't be able to. Look at this. And he showed me Necronomicon. I was blown away. So I flew to Switzerland to meet Geiger.
Yeah.
And Geiger said, I will not leave Switzerland. I don't like flying. I live here with my mother, etc. I said, bring your mother with you. And so I brought them in by train to Shepperton Village, and they lived above a pub where he designed. He said, I can do better than the Alien on the page. I said, no. I said, there's enough to that. The one that you draw, Necronomicon, is absolutely, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
Do not touch it.
I don't think
And
anybody.
that was it.
That's interesting because it's beyond Lovecraft, isn't it? It's sort of
Yeah,
way
I mean,
beyond. But what
there's a beauty to it.
yeah.
Actually, beautiful.
But what you've done is you've also, within that alien world, in that universe, in that franchise, you've coined two different kinds of monsters, the Lovecraftian one versus the Shelley.
Yeah.
And so you've got these two, ultimately, what we're now seeing in terms of artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
androids, all of these things.
Yeah, they're now normal. This is
Yeah.
going to be, if we don't watch it, they're going to be taken over. You won't even know when they've taken over.
Yeah.
You will not know when they've taken over.
Terrifying. Which one is
No,
more? Which one is
you're
more
right,
terrifying?
If this was an AI, I'd say, first job I want you to do is make an AI smarter than you are. Now I've got the ad. I'm going to get rid of this one. Now I've got this one. So, now when you make another one smarter than you, right there you're in trouble.
Since
But-
we're on the AI thing,
Yeah.
the future, AI, all of these things. I'm going to just quickly, the futurist Cory Doctorow recently warned that the AI bubble will likely lead to a total economic collapse.
Yes.
And he compared it to, this is a great quote, he compared it to the equivalent of shoveling asbestos into the walls of our society, and our descendants will be digging it out for generations. Now, obviously, AI offers us efficiencies and things like that, but also how it bleeds into creativity. What do you think? What's your opinion on it? Because I know you have
I'd buy a farm immediately, because it's going to go back to growing your own stuff and look after yourself if that happens. But AI will supersede everything that you can possibly imagine. And I mean, I do not want to talk politically. I don't think I better talk politically.
No, you better keep your
I better keep that to myself.
Yeah. Good.
I'm a war baby. I saw it happen.
That's a good one. Okay, we're going to lighten things up, and then we'll go for some audience questions. I got a couple of questions here. You've never stopped. What makes you happy?
Not stopping.
Not stopping. What's your very favourite food? Anything.
You know what? A yogurt and blueberries.
Really?
No, I eat very healthily.
I didn't say healthy. I meant
Healthily. Healthy.
guilty pleasure.
No food. I got over food years ago.
Okay.
I mean, I eat to stay as fit as I can.
Okay. Your relationship to animals.
Oh, you want to see me? I haven't got my dog. Janine is jealous of my dog. My wife's jealous of my dog. I mean, I adore dog. We had horses.
Yeah.
And we lived in the Cotswolds, and living on a farm, I think I have it in my blood. Having a farm would be the next best thing. I've got a vineyard. I've had it for 30 years. And if you're down in Provence, come and buy some wine. It's fantastic. And so in a way, it's the closest thing I've got to farming and the possibility of retirement, which I think is impossible.
Yeah.
So to me, the vineyard would be my retirement occupation, but I ain't going to retire.
Good. And one more question. What's your favorite movie of all time?
Oh, you know what? I think it's hard. Mine?
Yeah.
Oh, mine.
No, any
But A.
movie, not yours. I mean, you can say yours, but
It's the first time I got the urge, and I was 5 years old, sexual urge. And my mum used to take me to Lyons Corner House, and Mum used to love seeing cinema. And bizarrely, she took me to see Rita Hayworth doing Gilda. When she began with put the blame on Mame boys, and she started taking her glove off, I got a really funny feeling about it. And I refused to leave because you could sit around twice. I had to be torn off the street to see Rita again.
Brilliant. Who's got questions?
Be relentless. Don't listen to any advice. Be an absolute jerk. Well, actually, not true. Right now, I'm finding mediocrity, we're drowning in mediocrity. And so what I do, it's a horrible thing, but I started watching my own movies, and actually they're pretty good. And also they don't age. So I'm now I watched Black Hawk the other night and thought, how the hell did I manage to do that? I don't know. So I don't know. But I think occasionally a good one will happen. It's like a relief at last to somebody out there who's doing it good. I think you've got to stop worrying, and I think you've got to bury yourself in your own passion and see how well you do. AI is going to be an incredible tool medically and all kinds of wonderful ways, but I think you mustn't be frightened of it. I think it's a great tool, and hopefully it's not going to get abused. But the problem is, I think it will get abused. Yeah. That's what we've got to watch out for. I'll tend to castrate, assume that the script I've got is from pretty good to very good, and cast them loose. I want to see them make a statement creatively. So then they know that they're on. So on, I said, interesting. And I will comment, and then we'll go again. And usually they're then running, fueled. But if you cast great, if you cast badly, that's your fault. Raised by, I did you did 2. Did you do 2 or 3?
I did 3.
And I did the pilot. I think we all loved it. We thought we were on a good roll. And what happens is the incoming company had been, sorry, the company who had it was HBO. Were replaced, and the incoming company hate anything successful, so they ditch anything that was not theirs. That's what happens. It's that childish. It enables my complete efficiency. I mean, I paint every weekend, canvas, oil, and will I ever be as good as Hockney? Never. But it's pretty good. And from that, if I'm not drawing storyboards for the next movie, but a storyboard for me won't be too big, it'll be this thick. And so all my boards are now archived, and they're in a safe in Los Angeles, and they're insured for a lot of money now. So I think I always board everything. By boarding, I'm writing and filming on paper before I get there. No, I'm not allowed to. The studio own them. Even though I'm not hired to do board, somehow they own everything that you think of once you're on payroll. But they are. No, I can't sign. When you're going to do a sequel, you better have a good hook. And the natural hook in this seemed to be what happened to the boy, right? A bit like Alien died a death after 4 films, and I thought, I want to resurrect the whole franchise, so I did Prometheus, and the idea there was, who was the big guy sitting in the chair? So from that, you sit down at a table and start writing. And on Gladiator, where did he get to? How was he? Did he get lost? Did he die in the wilderness of North Africa? And so you start writing as you write. It's like a pyramid in reverse. It's the story opens. Writing is the hardest single thing to do. If I get it on paper, it's dead easy, right? The mechanics of filming for me, easy. Writing is by far. I'm already now trying to write Gladiator 3. But he's around, and he technically is the Emperor of Rome. And so I have a footprint about what I think it should be. I'm not going to tell you in case you steal it. Sit quietly in a room and stew till you think of something. I mean, it is that basic. I mean, I sit there going, and then you get, no, seriously. I mean, you know, I know a lot of musicians, and you know, like rock musicians, and I said, Sting said, he said, what do you want it like? I said, I want it like, I'll be watching you. He said, are you kidding? That's a big, he said, that's really difficult to do. Don't you? I said, okay. So it's hard, it's a very hard thing to be the author. There's no other way around it except sitting in a room and stewing until you get it. And if you don't, you shouldn't be an author. It's that simple.
That's it, I think. We're getting this a lot.
Thank you very much.
Good.